Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Kaltenbach, and this is the March 2025 um, Tennessee Native Plant Society seminar. And our guest tonight is Bieke Puncochar, and she is going to present on urban habitat restoration and the Neighbors for Native Plants program. And Bieke was born and raised in Belgium, and she earned a master's degree in child psychology from the University of Leuven. She went on to complete her doctoral degree in clinical psychology at Vanderbilt University, and she later taught there the both undergraduate and graduate classes, and she supervised junior clinicians, and she published research. They make you do all that when you work at Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
And I worked there. Um, Today, Bieke runs a private practice specializing in psychoeducational evaluation for children and adolescents. And the reason she's here tonight with us is she is a lifelong nature lover. She enjoys gardening, birding, nature walks, spending time outdoors with her family. And in recent years, she has become an avid native plant enthusiast. And she has a garden that is filled with native plants. So she's much like most of our members. And we're so thrilled to have you, and we're looking forward to your presentation tonight, Bieke.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Tim. And yeah, thanks for the warm welcome. I already feel kind of at home talking to you all a little bit because I can tell we have similar vibes in terms of our enthusiasm about plants, which makes me very happy.
Yes.
So yes, I would love to talk to you all tonight a little bit about the organization that myself and another person started called Neighbors for Native Plants. It's actually it's a nonprofit organization, and I will tell you all about it. I also kind of like we were talking about this earlier, the concept of sort of interactive presenting. So I would love to, if you guys have questions, feel free to jump in or raise your hand. I think with Zoom, you can raise your hand. Sometimes I might also like ask you all to give me some input because I recognize that I am new to the native plant society or the native plant movement. And many of you have been in this movement for a while, for a very, much longer than I have. So I hope to learn from you. Even though I'm the presenter, I'm hoping it can be sort of a back and forth as well. So I'm going to start. Let's see here. Let me see. Can I move on my screen? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start a little bit talking about what inspired me. And I'm sure many of you, if not most of you, have heard of Doug Tallamy. He is an entomologist and he has written several amazing books on the role of native plants in just our habitat, like a creation of habitat. I kind of have some bullets here about the main points in his book, Nature's Best Hope. He talks about why native plants are important, and I don't have to talk to you guys about that. Really how we all depend on native plants because we all depend on each other. Also, he mentions what kinds of factors are causing a decline in native plants as well as insects, as well as birds and other creatures. And then he comes up with this amazing idea of like, well, most land in the United States is privately owned. So why don't we make our private land a homegrown national park? And he comes up like he really shares this message that each of us can make a difference by what we plant in our yards. In a way, it's so simple. In a way, it's also so empowering because, we live in a world where lots of things happen that we don't want, things that aren't good for nature, and we might worry about that. What's so cool about this homegrown national park idea is that we can actually make a difference in our own yard. Um, and sorry, I think I need to go forward. I need to. Okay, here we go. Sorry about my technical issues. Um, basically, what happened was I read this book and could not stop talking about it. And it's funny because the reason I read the book was because I was at a psychology conference that was pretty dull. And as part of it, during a break, I was talking to one of my dear friends and colleague, and he said, "You know what? You should read Nature's Best Hope." And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So I kind of got on the library app and I put a hold on the book. And then once I got it, I couldn't put it down. So after that, I was this person, like you were saying, Kira. I was this native plant nerd who would talk to everybody, even when people maybe weren't as interested as I was, which is pretty likely because I was very interested. Well, my friend, and I'm going to use my cursor, I hope you can see it. So my friend Laura here, she's my neighbor. I'm over here. She's my neighbor. She told me, you have to meet another friend of mine, Bethany, because Bethany is just as nerdy as you are, and you guys are going to get along just great. Well, she put the two of us, here's Bethany right here. She put the two of us in touch. And then we had some, kind of basically some brainstorming around just a little fire in the backyard and came up with this idea like, what if we just like make as many people as we can know about the importance of native plants? And in addition, what if we make it really easy for them to put native plants in their yard? We just loved that idea. So that idea was sort of born December of 2022. And just to introduce ourselves, I see that one part of the slide is covered up by the people. So I don't know if that'll show up like that in the recording, but yeah.
Is that you? Do you mean my little box here
I
with
mean,
the
everyone's box on my screen is the right side of the
right?
so it's covering up Bethany's explanation, but I'll just tell you all about Bethany.
If you,
If somebody else,
sorry, if you switch to speaker view, which is what I'm on right now,
okay,
I've got the slide.
okay, wonderful, okay.
Yeah.
So I will hang on one second. So I will start by just, I mentioned Laura, who is our connector. Here's Bethany. Bethany is together, Bethany and I started Neighbors for Native Plants. And so Bethany is one of the co-founders of our organization. She is a mom to 5 children. She is an author and she's a passionate gardener. So when we met, sparks flew, so to speak. A little bit about myself that you don't already know. I am a mom of 2 girls, and I'm also a passionate gardener and a psychologist, as you mentioned earlier, Tim. And then Laura, she was not only our connector, she also is our volunteer coordinator. So, as we bring in volunteers to help with our sales, she's the person who helps make everything run smoothly. She has 2 boys. She works as a massage therapist. And again, she has this big love for gardening, big love for nature. And we really feel very connected with each other in that way. And I think based on just the first few introductions with you all, you totally know what I mean because you feel that same vibe. Okay. Oops. Can I go back? Sorry, here we go. So our organization kind of started off around a few main goals. And those goals were we wanted to raise awareness about the importance of native plants because for me, before I read Doug's book, I had no idea. So we were like, there's a lot of people out there that don't know. And if they did know, they would do something differently. So that's one of our big points. We also, like I said before, we are all busy people. We have kids, we have a job, all these places. But how about like if it was really easy to do sort of the right thing for our world? So let's make it easy for people. And then we also hope to create community around native plants. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways in which we raised awareness. So as I said already, we talked about it with really friends, neighbors, family members. We decided to put together 2 native plant sales per year and thereby bringing awareness to native plants in general. During those sales, we often have we have information also available for people to read as they're waiting in line or whatever as to why it is so important. We built a website and for people not super familiar with native plants, you know, I think we put information in there that's really helpful to sort of get you started. Like, why are things important? Which other organizations are are local that are focusing on native plants, and kind of just like what to expect in terms of the sales and in terms of the process of working with native plants as well. We also started Instagram and, or, not started Instagram, we started an account on Instagram. And, Bethany really is the person who manages most of that. She also has done a beautiful job making our website pretty. But anyways, through those two presences, we are trying to get the word out as best as we can. Regarding the, hang on. Regarding the raising awareness, we also kind of stepped out of our comfort zone. And we decided to do some public appearances. Like neither Bethany nor I are like super, super like, oh, let's like, let's go like bring all this attention to ourselves. But our passion for plants has really sort of pushed us to the other side. So we were able to talk with Carol Sullivan from Today in Nashville. She had us on her show twice to talk about native plants and why and our sales. Carly Gordon here, I think she has actually recently left Channel 4 to take another job. But anyways, she was very interested in native plants and this idea of creating a pollinator pathway across Middle Tennessee. So she came out and interviewed me, and she has even like, she wants to know when the next sale is so she can talk about it on the news so people know about it, which is incredible. Like she really has an amazing heart for plants and the natural world. Then Bob Mueller and his crew, they got interested in native plants, and so they came out and talked about it with me, which was lovely that there's so much interest. And then Bethany recently did a podcast with Mark Fraley. And he has interviewed a lot of different people, and one of the people he interviewed early on was Doug Tallamy. So it's kind of fun that that Bethany got to talk about what we do, and what we do is kind of connected to initially what he has been doing. So I think that the podcast you can listen to right now, it was recorded about a week and a half ago, I believe, and just talks about what we're all about. And then there was someone from the Pollinator Partnership, Bee Friendly Gardening, who reached out to see if we'd be willing to write an article about the organization and the importance of native plants, which I did a few months ago, and that was recently published. So we've kind of been like, all right, let's get the word out there, and it's been exciting, and it's kind of brought. I guess it's brought a lot of learning for us as well to like, how do you best kind of summarize this message and the importance of native plants in a world where attention spans are kind of short, but you want to get the main idea across. So that's been really, really fun. Another part of our sort of mission is let's make this easy. Let's make this affordable. Let's just not like remove the barriers that are in the way, between a person wanting to do the right thing and actually doing the right thing. And when I say the right thing, I mean putting a bunch of native plants in their yard. So we decided let's pick the plants for people, put them together in these pollinator kits. We do like a pollinator kit for shade plants. We do a pollinator kit for sun plants. And then let's buy them in bulk so we can get a better deal. And then people, right, our model right now is people order the plants online. We have sort of an ordering window. Our spring sale is actually happening right now, and orders can be made up to March 31st. Then once we know what we're working with, we get the plants from the nursery. We then put each kit together by hand and get their little name tags and all the things. And then people come pick up their plants at the time of the pickup event. So for our spring sale, that pickup event is happening April 27th. And really, as part of that, there's just kind of good vibes all around because people get excited to be there. People also get to talk to us and volunteers who are very native plant savvy, and they get to learn all about the specific plants in their kit, as well as sort of like why things matter in a broader sense. We also try to have some additional native plants available for purchase on the pickup date. Now you might wonder, okay, so how do you select these plants? Because that's actually something that we've heard from the community, that a lot of people who are not very knowledgeable about native plants don't really know where to start. Like you don't know which ones to pick. They also don't know where to get them. So partially what we are trying to do is make that process easier for people. So one of the first things we look at is this plant native to our region? And with native to our region, I mean like native to, this county and surrounding counties. So like being like Davidson, Williamson, like those kinds of counties are where we have a lot of people living that are buying from us. So that's one of the things that we care about a lot. So then moving on, like, is this plant a good host plant for a specific butterfly or moth species, or for a whole variety? You guys have probably heard about keystone species, and those are the species that cover, that kind of are a host plant to a lot of different insect species. But then sometimes we might pick one because we know that particular plant is important for that type of butterfly. So an example would be like a milkweed plant for your monarch butterflies. We also try to pick things that can kind of handle a variety of soil types and moisture levels, because our hope is that people are successful with these. And so for two reasons, really. One, we want the plants to survive, but second one is that we want people to get excited. Because if you plant something and it dies, it's like, ugh, like forget about it. But if you plant something and it does well, it's just so encouraging. And we've actually heard from several people this idea like, oh, I used to like always make plants die, but then I put native plants in the ground and they're doing great, so like native plants are so much more willing to grow in a variety of circumstances. We also try, this is not always possible, but we also try, especially with our sun kit, to have different plants in our kits bloom at different times, so that there sort of is a source of nectar for our pollinators throughout the season. As you guys probably know, like the shade plants, it's a little bit harder to find shade plants that bloom. And especially like, what we're thinking about here with shade is really like, let's make sure that these are the early bloomers to some extent, so that they can be, your ephemerals that bloom before the tree canopy kind of sets in and shades them out. But then also thinking about like, okay, what kind of host plants are we thinking about? And then the last point on my slide is really, we don't want to pick species typically that are overly tall. Sometimes we make exceptions because we're just too excited about a type of a certain species, but we'll tell people about it, because as people are putting more and more native plants in their landscaping, they might have to deal with, neighbors that are not so happy with, something looking a little more unruly. So because of that, we try to have some, pretty aesthetically appealing, and like in terms of size and color and whatnot, plants in the mix for sure. Let's see here. Oh, hang on. One thing that I didn't point out here, these two pictures. This is a BONAP map where you can see exactly where the native range of a certain plant is. So this is like one of the fun tools that we get to use when we're looking for, okay, is this plant going to be appropriate or not? And this here is the native plant finder. And this is connected to the homepage for Doug Tallamy's Homegrown National Park. It's really small. I apologize for that. It's called nativeplantfinder.nwf.org. And that particular website allows you to put in your zip code. And once you put in your zip code, it'll show you the plants that are native to that zip code. And then once you click on a plant, it'll tell you to which butterfly and moth species that plant is a host plant. So it's really neat. And if you get into the nerdy part of native plants, you're going to get all about this, like really excited about this. Let me see here. I wanted to share some pictures. These are images of our first ever plant sale. So what we did was we really just talked to our friends and family, and we were like, hey, if you know anyone, just let them know. We didn't even know how much things were going to cost in advance, because how much things were going to cost was going to depend on how many people were interested. So we would know how many plants to buy. But anyways, in the end, we got these fun little boxes shipped full of beautiful plants. We got them spread out all the way over all over my porch, and then we put them together. Everyone's name was on there so people could come find their name and then grab their little set of plants. And it was a fun gathering. It was a good time. There was music, bluegrass music. People were like just socializing, asking questions about plants, and it's kind of that you could feel that start of community, getting excited. Hey, what is this about? I want to be a part of this. So that felt really nice. And we kind of like, not only we're plant nerds, but we're also a little bit data nerds. So like we got some information in terms of like where people were sort of located. So each of these dots is a family that decided to put native plants in their yards as part of our sale. And so we ended up with that first sale with 40. Wait, did someone have a question?
I thought I heard something, but I
Okay, if you have a question, please come back to it. I was going to just say that 46 families ended up buying approximately 600 native plants, and we were just over the moon. We were so excited. And then that fueled us to want to get the word out more. So really, it was after that first sale that we got connected with some of the news people and, started doing social media and things like that, because we were just thinking how fun it would be if we maybe got 1,000 plants in the next time. That was just something we were shooting for. Well, the next time kind of exploded. So we had no idea that's what's happening, but partially Carly Gordon's piece on the news reached a lot of different people, kind of across more than just, like Davidson and Williamson County. Like we even had somebody from, I think we had someone from the Knoxville area come down to get some plants, which, I think, Anne, you were talking about, like, yeah, plants that grow well here might not grow well in Knoxville or Memphis, but he was all about it and jumped in. Um, so we ended up with a lot of plants, and those plants covered my porch completely. Then they started covering inside of the house. And some people were helping us put these kits together. So at this point, you have the dining room and plants everywhere. You can't see all the parts where the plants are, but it was really kind of plant overwhelm a little bit, but in a good way because we were excited about them too. But watering your plants while they're sitting on a plastic bag on your wood floor was, kind of had its own challenges. Another fun thing that happened was we applied for a grant through Earth Day, the Centennial Conservancy, and got a small grant to be able to provide each family that participated with a free shrub. So Bethany and I drove out to McMinnville and loaded up her truck and a trailer and everything full of beautiful native shrubs, and we brought those back to Nashville as well. So the event was again so much fun. We had music, but I will tell you this: the logistics of it all were a bit tricky because we suddenly had a lot more people wanting their plants, and they were all showing up at in my front yard, and they sometimes had to wait pretty long. Also, in terms of volunteers, we really had like two or three of my friends that were there, but it was logistically a bit challenging. Of course, we didn't expect to have a big growth like that, But what happened was we ended up in that sale connecting with 210 families and selling 4,000 native plants. So we just weren't ready for that kind of jump. And we were just like, wow, what just happened? It was very exciting. And I just remember just like having overall being very jazzed that the word had gotten out to this many people, but also feeling like, whoa, that took kind of everything we had. And it like my job, I have my own practice, so I just like basically didn't work for myself, like for a good bit of time, several weeks, to kind of get everything in the right place and worked out. So after that, Bethany and I felt pretty tired. But also we still had that, that excitement going. And so we just wanted to figure out a way, like, how do we do this again, but not feel so in over our head? So really fun stuff kind of came together. One thing is, it was sort of a little bit crazy to have 4,000 plants in my house. And so we connected with our local park, Shelby Bottoms Park, and they have certain areas that sometimes get used for events. There's actually something called the Cornelia Park, the Cornelia Ford Air Park, and that area is large. Sometimes there's like summer concerts, and through talking with the park and talking with the friends of the park, the idea was brought up like, hey, why don't you guys use that? You can put your kids together there, and then people can come pick things up there. And so we did that. And we actually also, as part of our sale, gathered, like we fundraised around plants for the park. So with any extra donations, we could pay for plants that would then be put in the park. This time also, we went for like freight delivery. And so my husband got a bobcat, like he rented a bobcat, and it was a whole situation. But we got so many fun plants together. So again, here is like Bethany and Laura and myself. And then after we got these plants delivered, it was a whole bunch of putting kits together. So, kids were helping too. This is one of Bethany's children. And then one of my daughters, like everyone was kind of like all hands on deck. And we ended up with a much better system. Everything was easy, organized, and it felt so good. So this was the getting ready slide. And then here is the pickup event. So between the last sale and this sale, we also got more strategic about volunteer efforts. And so I told you already that Laura is our volunteer coordinator. Well, she brought people together, and people started hearing about us too, which meant that people got curious. They wanted to be a part of it. So here's Laura again. And so she put together a beautiful group of people. She made them lavender cookies, which was lovely. And it was just a fun event. But anyways, the people here were all, and here were all part of this. They wanted to be included in the efforts. And some people were, had been gardening for a while, and some people were just new to it, and they thought it was a cool idea. There was some young people who like didn't know what to expect, but when they left, they were just so enthusiastic that you could just feel it impacting everyone in a positive way. And people, this is actually what you see here is our day of plants. So people who hadn't pre-ordered, or people who wanted more than the pre-orders, they could get their day of species, and they could get explanations by people who knew the plants well. So just fun vibes overall. And that spring 2024 felt really good to us because it was more organized, and we kind of had a bit of a better handle on what we were doing. The fall of 24 was very much a similar story. We were able to use that same space and get the word out, get the plants out. So really, in terms of data, in 2023, overall, we ended up getting plants to 240 different families because there were some repeat people. And we ended up getting 4,600 native plants out to yards. In 2024, things went up. We ended up getting plants to 292 different families, as well as plants to Shelby Bottoms, like I was saying. We also were able to donate some plants to the Brooklyn Heights Community Gardens, which is a local kind of community garden CSA type organization that provides free CSAs for people in their community. And so in total, almost 9,000 native plants made their way in Nashville yards in 2024, which was very, very fun. So, I had talked about sort of the three main goals, right? Raising awareness was one of them. Then making it easy for people to get these plants to them. And then the community connections is our third goal. I just want to walk you through a little bit of these pictures here. So I mentioned, I think during our introductory talk, these are adorable Girl Scouts, and they were learning. I was teaching them about winter sowing for native plants. And when I asked them about native plants and why they're important and what their role is, they were incredibly well informed. I was really impressed and really excited. And so each of these little girls like brought home, their water jug with native plants in soil, and they've just been sitting out. And I think they're sprouting. Some of those seeds are sprouting now, so I hope that they'll get excited and that they'll kind of continue on with native plants. Also, we've been part of like community events through our Friends of Shelby Park group. So they were like, hey, do you want to have a booth? We're doing this like back to school popsicle party. We'd love to have you talk to kids about plants. So we did all that, and that was fun too. This is a picture of the Earth Day event at Centennial, where we got a little bit of a write up because some of their grant money had gone to the shrubs that we distributed. These are some of the plants that ended up going to Shelby Bottoms as part of the fundraising that we did for plants at Shelby Bottoms, which is very fun. I already mentioned the community garden, and then we've been able to share some of our work with the wild ones. Also, Julie Berbiglia, she does the work with Tennessee Smart Yards, and she has been a really big supporter of our organization. She actually volunteers whenever she can, really, but it's wonderful to see her there because she's both knowledgeable and she's enthusiastic. It's wonderful. And actually, both Julie and Richard with Wild Ones, they will bring up when we have a sale, even though, as you probably know, the Wild Ones have their own sale, but we connect with them to make sure that we're not doing it at a similar time, and it works really well. And then this picture down here is a picture of a native garden that Bethany installed at a public elementary school. And it was just a boring mulched situation before that. And then over the course of just a few, like really just one season, it's gotten so pretty and happy for the pollinators. So in terms of the community response, I know this is kind of a busy slide, so I'll kind of walk you through it a little bit. But I did want to share this with you because I feel like the community response honestly has been a part of why we want to keep doing this, why this is so exciting. People talked about, kind of feeling like overwhelmed by the idea of planting, not knowing where to begin, and how much fun it's been to share the process with kids because you're trying to teach them like, why is this important? The other piece is just like, I think that like people feeling like one of the people here talked about the tornado and losing all these trees as part of the tornado. Like East Nashville, was very heavily affected by the tornado in 2020. And so the idea of like rebuilding and being intentional about what you put in, and then connecting that to like, oh, I want to be intentional. I want to put in native plants. That was a really fun comment to receive as well. I think other than that, just people enjoying that they don't have to put all the thought into it and that they can just go out and plant things. That's been a fun piece of feedback as well. All right. So kind of back to the sort of bigger picture. One of our goals is to build habitats, wherever we can. So the idea of growing the homegrown national park in each of our yards, encouraging people to do so. Then the idea too is, can we expand the ecological footprint of existing green spaces? One, like by connecting them through yards or by just like making them bigger in a sense of like all the homes that are near parks, if they all have native plants, we can make the parks bigger, so to speak. And so that's another piece that we're hoping for. And then this idea of a pollinator pathway, like if you look at the map of Tennessee and you see, there's like green parts in the map and then there's parts that are more urban. And so like, what can we do to contribute to making that urban area green, to making that urban area a welcoming environment for pollinators, who need fuel regularly in order to go from one place to another, thinking about migration and how important it is that there's no sort of dead zones along the way, which actually brings me to this idea of like, one of the things that I would love to do eventually, if there are people interested, in this is I would love to connect actually with other people, maybe some of you in Tennessee who are interested in figuring out how to do this in their area. Or in like collaborating with us to kind of put something like that together, because I would love to have to have the ability to continue to expand our pollinator pathways. And of course, I am aware that we're obviously not the only gig in town. Absolutely not. We know these efforts are ongoing, but it's just fun to connect with people in different locations as well as with people close by to sort of all be focusing on a similar goal. So I want to share this slide with you guys because this was very special to Bethany and I. Last week, I believe, when that article I mentioned for the Pollinator Partnership, when that was published, I sent it to Bethany. I was like, hey, look, it was published. And she took it upon herself to send the article to Doug Tallamy. And she just wrote him, hey, this is what we're doing in case you're wondering. Thank you. And he wrote us back within the hour. And he talked about, how he feels inspired by stories like this. And it felt very special. Like we both had a smile on our face that we couldn't get off for the rest of the day. But like this idea of we're all connected felt so important at that point. He was such a big part of, the beginning of our inspiration. We wouldn't have done this had we not learned about native plants. And so to learn that he in turn feels inspired by people doing kind of the work that he started feels really special. And I also think about like that with our native plants and our pollinators, like, we need pollinators to live. Like we need pollinators to survive, not just like the animals to survive, but like for us humans to thrive and survive, we need pollinators, and they need us. They need us to plant native plants for them so we can kind of keep the cycle going. So those are some of my my thoughts about our organization. But I would love to, I would just love to hear from you all what comes up as you hear me say these things, in the sense of like what initiatives you feel like we should know about, or who should we connect to? Like, are there any kind of immediate thoughts that pop up for you guys as you hear the ideas that I just shared? Feel free to unmute yourself and share.
I'll start things off.
Okay.
DNPS is now offering $500 grants to schools, elementary, middle, high school, and possibly homeschools. We will be posting the information for this year's round of grants in probably no later than May 1st
Okay.
on our website. And if you want, I can send you information on it. So when you talk to these Girl Scout groups, they can take that information back to their schools.
Yes.
And if there are any teachers that pop in to any of the events, please let them know.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
I'll try and do a little flyer for it, so you can have something to post.
Yes, that sounds wonderful. That's great. Yeah, and I think that the connection with the teachers is, we are, my husband and I are well connected with our school, our kids' school, and Bethany's the same way with her school. So I hope we can get some teachers excited just from talking with them. But thank you. It's a great point. And yeah, Tim mentioned a little bit about the grant. So I appreciate that.
This year was our first year for doing it, so we only had 6 good applicants.
Okay.
But this next round, I'm thinking that there will probably be, I'm hoping it catches on. So
That's wonderful.
I'm gonna jump in and
Yeah.
just say amazing job with your plant sales.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's been my main job for a few years now, is plant sales. At my previous job, it was all natives plus veggies and herbs. But now I've got to grow natives plus traditional garden plants. But anyway, to lower your cost, if you have time and space for some of these plants, you could consider holding some back and dividing them.
Mhm.
It's a really cost-effective way of making more plants.
Interesting, because I have like last fall I grew one of our species. And it was like another full-time job. It felt,
Mm.
because they were like, oh no, now they're too dry, now they're too wet. Oh, now there's like a spider mite situation. I mean, there was just
Yeah.
things coming up, and I am not, I'm not trained in that. So it was definitely
Well,
cha-
hey, let's make sure. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let's make sure we exchange information
yeah,
because I am happy to help you out with any horticultural stuff that I can.
sounds amazing.
Any
Yes.
advice that I have. I mean, I found aphids on my prize winning they're not prize but my beautiful succulents that I'm growing for plant sale. There are aphids on them.
Ugh,
So yeah.
yes.
They look like they're dying because we put some biological controls in the greenhouse.
Right.
But yeah, so you know, anything that I can help you with like that, I would be happy to.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Because I remember thinking this summer, I wish I had a mentor in this, because I basically had the internet as my mentor. And I mean, a lot of information was gathered, which was helpful, but I would love that. Thank you so much for offering
Oh,
that.
you're very, very welcome. But yeah, division is it's and the plants that you can divide are generally easy care, and so you can keep a certain amount of them around and
Mhm.
divide them at the appropriate time, and then
Yeah.
basically free plants. And
Okay.
you can offer them for even a more affordable price for your customer.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. All right.
Bieke,
Amazing job.
what strikes me about the value of your organization is that most so many people buy flowers and plants from the big box stores. Almost nothing in there is native, and then the better garden centers nowadays have uh, a native section, but it's still very limited. And
Wow.
among our members, I think people know where the pure native plant nurseries are. They're hidden around the state and they're on the internet and all that. But I think what you've done is you fulfilled your mission there by um, you made people aware of these natives, and then you provided uh, people with them, and they wouldn't have had any other source for them. And it's terrific that you kept the statistics on it, so you know how many plants you distributed and how many people participated. So it's really it's only, I suppose it's only something that a not-for-profit could have achieved. And so I think what you're doing is terrific.
Thank you. Thank you. And our thing is twice a year. So we do try to steer people towards places where they can buy some of these plants year round, like Joy, the Wonder Gift and Garden in Kingston Springs. She has a native plant nursery there. And we try to get people where they need to go, and we kind of hope that getting a few plugs from a pollinator kit through what we are providing gets people excited to want to get a whole bunch more, and so the hope is that to foster community and connection with what all is out there, and have even like thinking about there's landscaping, like Habitat Landscapes is a landscaping group that is specialized in doing landscaping with native plants, and we definitely try to make sure people are aware of that as well, because not everyone wants to dig in the dirt and maintain these plants. So like that, I want to make sure there's options for people depending on their interest level in gardening themselves. Actually, And if you would be so kind to kind of go back to the conversation we started before the official start of this. Speaking of, when you are the one wanting to introduce native plants in your yard and at the same time kind of trying to battle things like creeping Charlie or Bermuda grass or stilt grass, Japanese stilt grass, like you said you had lots of thoughts about this topic. And if you're willing to share, if you think it's appropriate, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts.
I would love to, but Sandra wanted to jump in on something, I guess from
Yes,
a couple
Yes,
of minutes ago.
Oh, sure.
yes,
Absolutely.
there she is.
Hi.
hi, I don't know how to make the video work, but I
You're
live
there.
in Knoxville. And what I have found is that while it's really great to encourage people to plant native plants in their yards, I mean, that's a really good thing. I think a lasting, perhaps more widespread result would be to start looking at the regulations and policies of local government and our state government. For example, the state of Tennessee has a invasive exotic plant list, but they could do what many other states do, which would be to take the next step and prohibit their sale
Right.
within the state of Tennessee. I know of 2 states that have passed a law that says that homeowners associations are not allowed to prohibit the planting of native plants. I could go on with many examples, but I think in addition to the grassroots, forgive the pun, I think we should also look at a little higher scale and look at regulation and what is and isn't allowed. And what you're presenting is a neighborhood level of a cultural transition, which is good and very hard to do. But it would be helpful if we could kick it up a notch and get our legislators and government to have this same emphasis on habitat and ecology. That's my little speech.
I like it. I like it.
Karen, excuse me, Karen is something of an expert on this. She has been spearheading the efforts
Yeah.
by TNPS in new developments. Do you want to say a word about that, Karen?
Sure. Excuse me. Allergies have affected my voice. So, pardon the gruffness of it. We have managed to pass a land development ordinance. It was in the process of being revised already because we're in an area, the town I live in is Thompson Station, and we're growing extremely fast. We're one of the fastest growing communities in the state. We've managed to pull off updating the land development ordinance and tightening up a lot of things. And one requirement now is that no invasives that are on the state invasive species list can be planted by the developers. And secondly, when they plant a new development, the common areas and so forth, they must plant at least 50% native plants. And that is by number. So you can plant 25 sunflowers, native sunflowers, or maybe 25 trees or 25 shrubs, or mix them all up. But it's forcing them, the developers in the area, to make changes. That is also true now in another area in White Bluff. And we're trying to develop a groundswell across the state that will eventually get to the point where, as Sandra suggested, we need the state to require natives and prohibit invasives. And so we're working towards that end. And I'm finding that the bee cities across the state are most amenable. We have 4 bee cities now. Chattanooga, which is very native plant friendly. Thompson Station. Stop and think here. Franklin has just joined the Bee City group, and maybe it's just 3. I'm sorry. So we're working on Franklin, trying to get their ordinances up to date, to where they're going to be doing something about requiring natives and prohibiting invasives. So there is a movement afoot.
Wonderful.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We just need to get a little bit more of a groundswell, in my opinion. I don't think we're there yet. We're not to the tipping point, but what you're doing is helping a lot, I think. And you've got me thinking, I've done something similar to what you're doing, but informally, we had native plant we have yard sales in my community twice a year. And sometimes I pot up some of my extras, the ones that rather than weeding them out, I put
Right.
them in containers and offer them at the yard sale. So I'm thinking what you're doing though is giving me ideas how to formalize it. So if I can get them to order ahead of time and pick up on the day of the yard sale, it would be so much easier.
Yeah.
Bieke, there was a question about where do you source your plants for your sales? A question in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good question. And the answer is that we have tried a few different things. Like our first sale, we bought them from several different places, and we learned kind of quickly that not every place that, says they'll be delivered at this date delivers that date. So we ended up luckily it was just friends and family that time, but it was a little stressful because a few of the plants did not arrive in time for the pickup date, which,
Did
was
you
not.
find a significant difference in the quality of the plants you were ordering as well?
That too. Yeah, that too. And even within, so for several sales, we worked with sort of a middleman. So Izell what was a company that we worked with, and they kind of work with a lot of different nurseries. And we found at that time that Kind Earth growers had really nice plants compared to some of the other companies that where they just arrive and they're just like not looking that strong and takes them many days to look okay. But and we've tried going kind of like directly to the nursery, but then we've just tried a few different things. And this go around, we're working with a nursery that is located both in Wisconsin and Kansas, and they have two growing areas, and they're called Taylor Creek. So
Okay.
so we're just trying different things. In terms of like some of the logistical pieces that we're working with, we try to make sure that, like with Izell, one of the things that was nice is that they were willing to let us place a hold on a certain number of plants based on our anticipated number of plants needed, and then actually buy the ones that we truly needed. But that was, that was harder to do directly with a nursery. So we're kind of just like trying to find, if you guys have good suggestions about people in Tennessee that have a wide variety of high quality plants that would be willing to figure out something like that, I would be all ears. I would love to learn about them.
I've got a lot of, at my old job, I pretty much grew everything at the nature center. I grew most of what I grew from seed.
Okay.
So I had a lot more control over the plant from the beginning to sale. And when you're ordering these plugs, sometimes you don't know what they've gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get challenges there. So you might look into growing some stuff from seed.
Right. Well, and
it's relatively easy for some stuff. And then there's some
Okay.
stuff that it's just ridiculous for.
Right.
And that's why we need to stay in touch, because it's a novel, I mean,
Yes, I think, well, I have a very strong interest in doing so. I currently have like 54 species winter sowing in my yard.
Yeah.
They're all germinating except for maybe 4. And it's just it's the highlight of my day sometimes to go out
And
there. But
there are things, for instance, like anything in the mint family. It
Yes.
makes sense to just start a whole bunch of it, more
Mhm.
than you'll need for that sale, and
Yeah.
but have mint ready for that sale. But then you start mint that year, and then you've just got all the Monarda or the Pycnanthemum or whichever one,
Yeah. Mhm.
and you've got a stock, and you can divide that for a few years. And when it gets tired, then you start a new round of seed.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I will definitely be in touch, Anne.
Yeah.
I like where all this is going. This sounds really good.
And it's so much fun.
Exactly.
Also, just the growing of the I do more plugs than I want to at work now because of the volume that I'm dealing with.
Mhm.
Um, and I've got a garden of my own that I attempt to take care of as well. But it's so much more fun and satisfying to do stuff from seed.
You know, the species I grew last summer was lyre leaf sage, and just love looking at it because I see it because I picked it because I saw it everywhere at Shelby Bottoms, at Shelby Park and Bottoms, and so then growing it's a tough plant. I'm really glad I picked that one because it can handle a little bit of you even can handle cold weather.
It
And
can handle anything, it seems like.
yes, it's a tough one. I'm very
Not very picky.
yes.
But yeah, no, I will absolutely love to help y'all out with any cultural knowledge
I love it.
that I
Definitely.
can help with. Yeah.
Yes. And by the way, I don't know how to best get a hold of you guys, but maybe I can get that information through Tim or Karen. But here is the easiest way probably to get a hold of me through the nfornativeplants@gmail.com email address. Um, yeah, I'm so excited. This is like
Yes.
what I'm hearing here is exceeds my
Tim,
dreams.
please go ahead and share our info if you don't mind.
Oh, sure, sure.
Thank you.
Are there
I,
any other questions or thoughts that people want to share?
How much do you charge for your plants? Is there a sweet spot?
Well, so we currently charge $80 for 16 plants, so $5 a plant. We ended up moving away from Isel because we could not afford that price point with what they were doing between the cost of their plants, shipping, and then buying containers to put the kits together, like all the materials in associated with that, printing out the plant labels and such. So that's part of why we ended up moving away from Isel, even though we really like the people there. They've helped us a lot. But we just didn't feel right passing on their increasing cost because they used to have better discounts for bulk orders, and they used to have their price was just lower before. And then this time it was, I think there was a 52% increase or something like that. So
Wow.
it was between the lesser discount and then the higher rates. It was just kind of impossible for us. And I felt bad because I really liked the connection that we had with them. And, Amanda at ISL was someone who was saying, hey, you need to get these poultry scissors to cut through the flats. And like she gave us all these fun little tips and tricks. Actually, speaking of tips and tricks, we would like to find a non-plastic container to use to put our plugs together, or, to put our kits together. And I was wondering, I've been looking at like different containers that are, biodegradable or recyclable, but I wondered if you guys have any like, oh, you should definitely do this. Do you have any ideas?
You can buy a soil blocking machine
Yes, yes, I have one of those. But
and heat
how would
pump.
you combine that with the existing plugs?
Non-plastic way to grow seeds is egg cartons, but it doesn't really work that well
Yeah,
because the egg cartons disintegrate too
right.
quickly.
And you know, right now, what I'm actually wondering about is not so much the container you grow them in, but is the, you know, we will distribute them to people as kits. You know, so like a full kit is 16 plants, a half kit is 8 plants. And that kit, you know, I would love to have that be something that's not plastic. So it only has to last for like enough time that we can water it maybe a little bit, and then we can get it to people so they can take it home. So I've been looking at it into different kinds of cardboards, boxes, and things like that. But I didn't know if there was something obvious that I'm missing there.
No, there's not, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the bags, the fabric bags that people are using for trees, which
Okay.
is
Yeah.
plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. There may be some pressed coconuts stuff, but it's
Okay.
probably really expensive.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. And I think I've looked into it. I probably have. And I'm like, well, that's cost prohibitive. It's not gonna work.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for your thoughts.
Yeah.
And
I'll,
thanks for everyone's attention and great questions and great follow-up comments. I really appreciate it so much.
Yes, so our hour is up, and Bieke, this was terrific. Thanks everyone, all our members for attending. We had 24 people, including our speaker, but um, this was a really fun, and it's just exciting to hear about your work. It's amazing stuff.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your input, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
We will. And your this presentation is going to be up on our website. It should appear in about a week. And so it'll be available, and anyone who is watching right now can see that the slideshow here contains Bika's contact information, the email there, and the website for Neighbors for Native Plants. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I'm so glad I got to meet you all.
Our pleasure.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Bye.
so much,
Thanks,
Bieke.
everyone. Good night,
Bye.
everyone.